Our individual belief systems are a combination of things that we've been told and things that we've experienced. Our perception fills in the gaps, and this is where we each form our individuality. I am Tavish Cardiff. It is our Raw Materials Food Week, and the food pillar has a lot to do with how we're nourished physically, but it's so much more than that. It's really about our mental state. Food plays a big part, yes, especially if at any point in our lives we have suffered from food scarcity or a lack of nutrition. That will always play a part in our mental state. We absorb the feelings around having a lack anywhere, and those things stick with us when we're young. So even from a spiritual standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, and from a mental standpoint, each of those factors about how we're nourished play in to the food pillar. So our relationship with our mental state is really what the third week and the food pillar is all about. Eat healthy, take care of your body, absolutely. But what I want to talk about here today is belief systems and how we shift beliefs that don't serve us and don't help us. It starts with our thoughts. And those thoughts are patterns that have built up over time. They're related to the people who raised us and the way that their thoughts worked. In your house, there may be an idea that you have to get up on Saturday morning and do chores. I knew plenty of families that worked like that. In my own family, you better get them done on Friday or you weren't doing anything. But everybody has a different system and rhythm that they get into around the way something ought to be, should be, all of those types of things that we put around a thing when we learn it. So back up from your own belief system and let's start to just pull apart where some of those beliefs came from. So let's talk food, actual nourishment. The things that you know to be good for your body are a combination of what someone else has told you, what you've read, what, maybe you're under the care of a doctor and a doctor's told you what you need to do. But ultimately, you are the primary authority on what food does in your body. I personally have a thing with almonds, and pretty much, unless you're allergic, almonds come recommended on most diets, and they are good for you in every sense of their properties. However, how they interact in my personal body is weird. And I've just noticed over the years of paying attention to what almonds do to me that I have my own relationship with them. Now, does that come from a belief that I've formed? Probably. But for the detangling purposes, I think we figure out where our beliefs come from and operate on them. If I had a huge love of almonds, I might try to dig it out a little further. But as it stands, I just eat them in very, very small moderation. I have a little bit of an effect every time I eat them, but it's not major, and it's enough for me to remind myself, oh, I have a relationship with my body where I know what my body needs or doesn't need. That being said, are we listening? When it comes to spiritual, mental, and emotional nourishment, these things are harder to measure. Emotionally especially, we may not even recognize the emotional needs that aren't being met because we don't have the time or space to even allow for them. And it may be that we have to get older or watch other people interact to see what support is available emotionally that we needed, might have wanted, any of those things. When we get a sense of our own raw material, the mental structure is formed from the things that our mentors teach us and then the spiritual aspects of music. So we are always going to go into Food Week having just come off of mentors and music. And those two things are always going to remind us who taught us the things that have been strongly held in our belief system. When we start challenging our own belief system and whether the beliefs that we hold serve us, are valid, help us, protect us, whatever it is that we expect them to do, then we can start playing around with what we actually believe and getting to that creative power I'm always talking about. The mental structure is where we really get that mind-body space to connect. When we start working with the physical body in order to connect the soul, the ego, the mind, the spirit, this is where our mental structure has to play a part. It has to know that it is on the team and aware of what it's doing. A lot of times our mental structure operates with impunity. It does what it needs to do to protect itself without being concerned about how everyone else is affected. I got to spend New Year's in Indiana, and I visited the Tibetan Cultural Center this is now my 4th time being there on the grounds. And each time it gets a little bit of a deeper connection. It was Music Week. I purchased a singing bowl, very, very deeply toned singing bowl that I wasn't expecting to purchase, but something about it, something about the place, something about the ground, something about the ability to ground within it, I was able to listen to my own value system say, this will actually be worth owning, be worth having. And so I invested a little money in something that I normally wouldn't. Food Week, my own mental structure had to shift to allow me to spend a chunk of money I wasn't planning on spending, especially on something seemingly frivolous. Although, as I've really thought through it, I don't feel like it is at this point. But I definitely snap judged it right off the bat. I've made peace with buying it. It's been a few days. So I have had the time to settle in to my choice, and it meets with my value system. It leads me towards my creative co-creation of the world that I want to live in, and I feel good about the choice, even though right off the bat my emotions said no. And I know that's a big part of my belief system. I know that my belief system has a set of fail-safe things that don't allow me much excess, and I'm learning to work with that because on some level excess feels good. There's a little bit of it that, there are moments for indulgence. There are moments, if you are afforded the opportunity, to take them. I think when it's balanced with the greater good, it obviously lends itself a little more groundedness and power. Food Week is all about what we believe, how we hold it, and specifically what types of thoughts we hold in our head on a regular basis. Those are going to be the things that our emotions come and ping pong through. And we know from just living everyday life that whether we deal with emotions or not, whether we are, actively confronting them or not, they will find a way into our psyche, into our body, into our heart. And whether it is at night when no one else is around us, or whether we, open up on a psychiatrist's couch, whether we have friends that we can talk to or family that we can open up to, some way this stuff needs its outlet. It needs an arena. And that's where our raw material comes in. It is to fully support your mental state. And begs the question, why should I listen to someone else tell me what to do? And I think that is the biggest confusing thing about our raw material. It's a common structure. It is not common thought. Each of us will have a different relationship with each pillar. I can guide you through what I think your connection to the food pillar will be, but your experience is going to tell you what that relationship is. I can only anticipate my own experience and the things that I've thought of. And I do spend some time expanding what I think and trying on different possibilities so that I can see from a broader perspective, and so that my belief system does expand and grow to that bigger space that each of us aspires to. At least it's what our soul is aspiring to. Our egos may not know that they're connected. So Food Week is for making that connection emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically to the things that nourish us. Lately, I have been trying to see from the perspective of a Chiefs fan, Arrowhead Stadium. So I imagine that I can like just my hands can be around the outside of it. And energetically, I can touch anything swirling in there. I can pick up the positive energy, the negative energy. It's very real inside of there. And they call that energy a hara line. So I've been putting my energy into the Chiefs Stadium hara. That means anyone who's ever set foot in the stadium, thought about being in the stadium, experienced anything in there, concerts, games, maybe you just work there, whatever it is, you have a piece of your energy attached to that stadium. And I've been working with the Chiefs Hara line just to kind of do my part to calm down that energy, to let it recognize that it's connected to something outside of itself, to not let ego get the best of it, and to remember that as our opinions and beliefs change about things, we can easily do the due diligence to recognize that we're operating for something bigger than ourselves and just be intentionally connected to that. And I think that if we do that, we weather this ego storm pretty well. We all remind ourselves what's important, why it's important, and those values will carry us through in the areas where we still need some nourishment. Practice guidance for this week. Pay attention to beliefs that don't serve you anymore. Ask yourself why. When you recognize just a hard and fast judgment against something, does it really need the judgment? Ask yourself why. I look forward to coming back next week to talking about my favorite pillar, ignorance. It is the first of the physical weeks, and it wraps up the rawest of the raw material, the most personal first 4 weeks. We combine the stuff our mentors have taught us, the spiritual connection we feel, the belief system that we operate in, and then we take that into the world and realize there's so much more in there than our little input. Sets us up to judge, teach, learn, and expand the horizons of what we know, getting closer and closer to the belief that we can affect a lot more than we believe that we can. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week.